Oh man, this is an amazing, amazing Memorial Day weekend. Today is Sunday, and I have on, one of the most genre-bending, but I find fascinating musicians in the world of music, the one and only Daru Jones. Thank you for being with us, Daru.
Thanks for having me, brother.
You are, first of all, before we can get into anything, we have to address the fact that you are a big Keith Haring fan. And you are dripping in Keith Haring today. I just noticed the bucket. Where's the bucket from? Do we know?
It's Keith Haring.
No, but I mean, do we know the company?
I don't know
who
the
licensed it?
Nah. It's the last time I went to the actual crib or the laboratory with shout out to G Pro.
Okay, G Pro, yeah.
So he owns the estate of Keith Haring estate.
Right.
So last time I went by, every time I go by, he's like fill the bags up. So I just fill the bags up.
I wish I could fill my bags up with Haring and Basquiat stuff. Yeah. So let me do this because I think this is a good way to keep it on the table here. So what we're talking about, the reason why we have Daru in today is because the music, the drumming specifically that you do, I find to be more eclectic and more interesting to the ear than your average drummer. Okay, so drumming is nothing new. It's been around since mankind. So to make something special and new of it, I think is very difficult. But let's go back. How did you even get into music at all, period? Like, in the beginning?
I know, right?
That's a good question. Long story, short story, but yeah, it's a story. My mom and dad, they were both musicians.
Oh. So the apple does not fall far from the tree.
That's what they say, but I guess it's some truth.
What type of music do they play?
Gospel.
Okay.
So, they were organists and pianists in church.
Okay.
So I grew up, playing in church. Grew up Pentecostal, Church of God in Christ. And like I said, my mom and dad, they were both musicians. And my dad was actually my mom's organ teacher.
Stop it.
Yeah, so
that is a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, so they caught a, so obviously they caught a vibe because your man's is here.
Clearly.
They caught a vibe, but yeah.
Clearly.
Rest in peace, my pops. I lost him in 2017.
Rest in peace.
He lives on, through me and my older brother and my older sister. And like I said, my dad was my mom's organ teacher, and I'm glad I grew up in a home, it was just music all around. Except it was gospel music. I grew up in
So were there instruments in the house?
Yeah, we had a Hammond B3 in the crib.
So do you recall what the very first instrument that you touched was? Like the first noodling around you may have done?
That's a good question, but it was hands off the organ. If you could play, it was hands off. So my pops, he was a dad. He was a dad.
Yeah. Okay, so then you weren't allowed to touch the organ. You are now a drummer.
Yes.
Maybe that's what led to being a drummer, because you couldn't touch the organ. You would have been an organist, but Dad was like hands off. No, but seriously, were you in church playing an instrument? What do you recall being most impressive to you as a young person?
Okay, yeah. So I started playing at the age of 4. And when I went to church, I went to a church where we had service every night except Saturdays. So a lot of my cousins and uncles, they played drums. And I was just fascinated. I was like, yo, this what is this thing that's making noise, people moving around? And I thought it was the most instrumental, thing, people, the sounds that came out of the drums, and it just caught my eye, and I never looked back.
So from the beginning, the drums really got to you.
Yeah, because I just noticed that the drums were like the heartbeat. It was keeping everything together. You know what I'm saying? And I came up back then with, gospel nowadays is a little bit more different. It's a little bit more advanced. It's more production. Like when you go to church service, it's a whole.
Oh yes.
It's like watching.
Oh,
it's like a movie production. You know what I'm saying?
It really is.
But back in the days, it was very bare bones, raw. You know what I'm saying? You had your bass player, guitarist. At our church, and we had 2 keyboard players. We had an organ player and we had a keyboard player. So both, share different roles.
Oh, did we tell people where this church was? What city?
It was in Michigan. It was in the state of Michigan. But yeah, so it was just the basic 5: organ, keys, bass, guitar, drums. And like I said, I had a lot of cousins and uncles that played. And the crazy thing is, I was so short, being that forward, they had to use like the old school desks. Remember the school desks?
What do you mean? Like for you to play on?
For me to sit on. The desk where people would do the
the beat, the hand drumming.
The hand drumming. Yeah. So that was my seat.
At the drums?
At the drums. They had to.
So where the desk was? What was where the desk was?
Drums. But let me put this into perspective. So I had another cousin that played drums. We started around the same time, and he had one of the kid drum sets. He had a CV700. That's a company name. They had a kid's drum set, so it was a lot smaller. And then, if you're a kid, they make it so you can, you can sit. But when you go, but I wanted to play the big boys kid. You know what I'm saying? So to do that, I needed the school.
Were mom and dad playing while you were on the drums?
Yes, and I'm really glad I had that experience. It was nothing like performing with your parents. You know what I'm saying?
How many siblings do you have?
I have two. I have a sister and a brother.
What instruments do they play?
My sister, she's an amazing vocalist. And my brother, he's an amazing illustrated drawer. And he's a bodybuilder too.
Okay, so back to the family.
Actually, my brother drew some illustrations in here.
Oh my God, you have a very talented family, and it sounds like at a certain point, your parents did need some percussion in the family band.
Yes, so the family band was a part of the church band.
So this is, born out of necessity.
Yeah, it was cool. Fun fact, like eventually, as a teenager, my mom, she wanted me to take organ lessons because she was like, son, I'm gonna need you to sell for me. So she put me in organ lessons. I remember going to organ lessons and my teacher had a drum machine. I'm like, yo, there's a machine that played drums on its own. So my head was cracked.
What age is that?
Man, I was like 13, 14.
Okay, 14. Okay, because when you discovered, because I'm the same way. Okay, and I'm 47. So when I discovered the drum machine, it actually launched me down the whole path of like production. Yeah, I was a DJ, okay. And then I discovered, for me, but for you were a musician and you discovered the drum machine, and I already know you're a huge hip hop head. Mm-hmm. So okay, you're a musician. 14, you discover a drum machine, and what happens?
It was crazy. I just started, I started emulating, peace. You got some peeps coming in. But how are you? Good.
Uh-oh, he's got a Duke Ellington shirt on, so that means he's talented. Telling you, folks are late stragglers on this holiday Sunday. Oh, he's wearing a De La Soul medallion, so he's automatically allowed in free.
I got the grind date on it.
Word up.
It's beautiful to see everybody. And, just before we continue talking about the life and times of Daru Jones, I like that because it seems like a show that should be on Netflix or something.
Oh, man, you don't have to have Jennifer produce that.
Makeup.
The life and times of Daru Jones.
I'm not mad, maybe you want to something.
Okay. Well, before we get into anything deeper, let's tell them about, Daru Jones Plays the Breaks, because this is not your normal book. So can you tell us about the book and how the book came about and what is inside the book?
That's a good question. So the name of the book is Daru Plays the Breaks. As y'all know, breaks are known for in the hip hop community. It's a part of the beginnings of the culture, of hip hop, with the DJs finding breakdowns on Pacific Records. Funky drummer. Shout out to James Brown, rest in peace. Clyde Stubblefield and Jabo. They were James Brown's, I think his last drummers. But yeah, there's a segment on the song where the drummer gets a solo, and instead of going crazy, he just did this loop pattern that's been sampled. It's like one of the most sampled patterns in hip hop history. So shout out to Breakbeat Lou. He's actually in this book too. Breakbeat Lou, him and his partner, they were the guys that went and found and sought out the breaks, because in the 80s or during that era, I wish this era would come back, but the artists that they would record, they would always give the drummer a solo. So, you know, as a drummer, you're thinking when you get a solo, this is my time to do everything that I've been practicing on. But some drummers like, nah, I'm just gonna keep it pocket. I'm gonna play something funky, and I think that's clever. So it was very powerful. You know what I'm saying? Just to go back to Break Blue, they actually went and shout out the break. So you got like Rocksteady by Aretha Franklin. You know what I'm saying? That's a popular break, and that coincides with the title of the book. And the reason why I say breaks is because first it came out on compact disc, so it was an audio book, and I basically was given a narrative to different collaborators that I worked on: Black Milk, Slum Village, Talib Kweli, Jack White. When I would go into the studio, and I was given the opportunity to record drum patterns, you know what I'm saying? I would pretty much make my own thing, you know what I'm saying, like my own break. And so the compact disc book, it was just me talking, like giving stories of what happened in the session. So like when you read the passage, like, okay, this is what happened when I was in the studio with Jack White, whatever.
Behind the scenes,
you know what I'm saying? And I'm playing the original pattern that I played in the song. So like Lazaretto, for those that don't know, that track was inspired from MC Light, Cha Cha Cha. You know what I'm saying? So if you say Cha Cha Cha, shout out to MC Light.
Well, now that you say that, you're like, oh, that makes sense. Now that you say that.
So we just made up our own rendition. You know, I played my own pattern, but yeah, it was inspired by that. And in this book, it just kind of gives a story.
So this book, without, you know, another way to say it, is the kind of behind-the-scenes stories of the breaks that you played on these amazing, award-winning records.
Thank you. Yeah, because, you know, when you go in the studio, sometimes people, they want to know what inspired you to do what you did. Because, you know, a lot of people, I definitely want to channel the energy from the creator above, but sometimes, you know, if you listen to a lot of music, you're going to play, you know, you are what you eat. So if you listen to a lot of certain things, you're just going to come on and you're playing. So sometimes you might just randomly play like something because you heard, you know, you listen to it all the time, like the whole Dilla swag or whatever. But some of the patterns are definitely inspired by other records. Like Little Miss Lover is a famous break that was in Tribe Called Quest Scenario.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And
that's the Jimi Hendrix.
The Jimi Hendrix record. And I think I talk about that on one of the tracks.
Okay, but we got to back up because you skipped a whole important stage to what makes you so unique, and it's because you are the tree in the forest, right? And I'm a little bit more outside, you know, the forest. And what's amazing about what you're doing is you're going right to the heart of the matter, and you're saying, no, I want to emulate the raw break sound that created hip hop, but I want to do it in a totally new, unique way.
Yes, sir.
And I think it's beautiful that you're so humble that you totally.
It's all good. I mean, we just want to keep the art form alive. You know what I'm saying? I know there's a break community out there. There's companies out there that sell loops to producers. You know what I'm saying? But the real time break comes from the DJs going to assess out those segments on those songs. But a lot of people, they're not making records like that where they give the drummer a solo. So now we gotta like make our own sort of break. You know?
Yeah, but like you're a church kid in Michigan.
Yes.
You know, like what's a church kid in Michigan? How's a church kid finding out about one hip hop? Okay, and because I will tell you this, I have my coworker. You know, she's also a church girl growing up, and when her mom found her Eminem CD, it was Christmas Day, and the fire was roaring. And let me tell you, there was an extra log on the fire, you know. So like, you know, because some parents are quite strict. So tell us, you know, if you're, you know, going to church and your family's probably, you know, more religious, how did you find and discover hip hop and the breaks?
That's a good question. So, like I mentioned earlier, I started playing in church and I grew up Pentecostal. It was like a whole thing, Church of God in Christ, and it was super strict. Everything outside of gospel was considered secular. It was a no-no. It's like you can't. But when I would go to school, all my friends would be talking about this hip hop. Like, yeah, what is this hip hop? So I just wanted to be down. You know what I'm saying? So
what age are we saying here?
Oh man, That's a good question.
Like, can you, so a question, Master G, I do a radio show with Master G of the Sugar Hill Gang, and he always asks people, usually because he knows the answer, you know, like, what's the first hip-hop song you can recall ever hearing? It's okay if you were 4, if you were 7, 12, like, do you recall?
I'm bad, LL Cool J. I'm bad, LL Cool J.
Wow, you answered really quickly, so you remember. And where were you?
I was in Michigan. But yeah, I was at school.
No, but how did you get the song? Like, everyone kind of remembers
because
that
back in the days, everybody had the booming systems in the whip.
Okay.
So, you know, I don't know if they do that now, but back in the days, having a dope card with a dope system where you can play the music loud, you couldn't help but to hear the vibes, you know what I'm saying? So that was like, I really missed that time. I don't know if people are still doing that nowadays, but yeah. So hearing those beats in the car and then going to school and just hearing people talk about it, I was like, man, I want to be down. And then eventually I would find out about MTV Raps, and I would sneak. I had a tape recorder, and I would put my recorder up to the TV and just record to the set.
Damn.
So I was like, you know, sneaking.
Because you didn't have a hip hop radio station.
No, sir.
See, growing up in New York, you know, I think we were a bit jaded because, you know, we had at least 1 or 2. You know what I mean? For me, it was Red Alert. You know,
Red Alert.
I would have to stay up very late. You know, and put boombox on very quietly, quickly hit. You know, turn it back down. You know, and then you'd listen to it. You'd share with your friends. If you were a smart businessman, you'd sell it.
Yo, you know what was crazy? Like, I'm glad I grew up at the time that I did, but it was just so much versatile hip hop coming out. You had Luke.
Oh, right.
The 2 Live Crew.
Right, at the same time that you have De La Soul. Those are 2 opposite sides.
It was so bugged out. And then NWA. So and then it's like, this is right before they started putting parental advisories on the projects. It was just crazy. Like, hearing somebody use profanity on the song, it's like, man, but so I had to figure out how to appreciate hip hop, you know, coming from super, you know, church background, and I just gravitated towards the producers. So I started being like, yo, and then I started noticing, you know, in the 90s, Premier, Pete Rock, RZA, they were all, I won't say RZA, but like definitely Premier and Pete Rock, and they were sampling jazz.
Yes.
Right. And by me being a drummer, and when I finally got exposed to the jazz genre and the funk, I started noticing where, you know, this is Bob James. You know, I started noticing where I was like, okay.
You're able to trace it back to something that you felt comfortable with, something that you recognized. My father was a jazz freak.
Oh man.
Okay, so I didn't grow up in a church background, but man, he had so many jazz records. You know, when you start getting into hip hop and then you discover that it's sampling jazz, you're like, oh, let me see what my dad got up in here.
Exactly.
Let me see. And you know, for me, I found Ahmad Jamal.
Yo.
And I was like, oh wait, that comes from that, you know? And so you hear music and then you're like, ooh, some people are like, I want to try to make that.
Yes.
So what was the point? There's 2 points I'm going to ask you about. The first point where you wanted to start making your own original music, and then 2, the point after that where you wanted to start making it professionally for money.
Okay, as far as like want to make music, I started off on the drum machine. When I went to those organ lessons and my organ teacher had that drum machine, I was like, yo, it's a machine that plays drums? And I begged my mom to get me one of those. So she got me the drum machine. It was a Boss, and then I got the Roland R5. I'm telling you, but yeah, Roland R5 was classic. Everybody was using the Roland R5 or R8. It was killing. So I just started learning how to program patterns, because a lot of those drum machines, they came with pre-patterns. Like stuff.
But those were the worst.
Yeah,
you never use those.
But when I found out you could make your own patterns, I just started emulating whatever was like Teddy Riley, the New Jack era, like everything that was popping. Because you know, back in the days when people were producing hip hop tracks, they had all these drums. They would have like the programmed drums on top of the samples. Yes. So I just started emulating what I heard, like Eric B.
For president. Oh, I see. So you did the Marley Marl.
Exactly.
You did the Marley Marl, which is basically you find the break, right? And then you loop the break, you know,
and
then
drums
you
on
add
top.
the drums on top of it to kind of bring it back to a real sounding loop.
Yes. So even before that, I used to be a good beatboxer. I remember when I found out about the beatboxing, and people in school, they was like, "Yo, why do you beatbox so good?" They didn't even know I was a drummer. I was like, "I play drums," because I was like beatboxing like I'm a drummer, just so they could understand. Like I was doing fills and everything beatboxing.
Do you still use beatboxing in your music at all?
Chill. I let Norm handle that. Nah, but I'm a fan of it. Shout out to Rozelle and people that's keeping.
I was just gonna say, Rozelle.
Rozelle is just dope.
You know, speaking of breaks, I have to ask you this question. I was in the car with my son, and my son is about to be 12. And believe it or not, his favorite groups are like Beastie Boys and Run DMC. Because I insisted on, before playing the other stuff, you know, so he does like that. So I said, you know, what should I ask him about? You know what I mean? I was asking my son. And, you know, my son was like, well, he's a drummer. Why don't you ask him about, you know, what his favorite drummers are? But then that got me started thinking, like, what your favorite break was. Because, like, you know, Impeach the President, okay, and the Funky Drummer, I can't think of any two breaks that are more, you know, utilized. But in your opinion, what's your favorite break? And you can you're on a deserted island. There's a gun to your head. The deserted island where the break will play all day, every day, okay? And there's a gun to your head, and somebody says, Daru Jones, you have 10 seconds to tell us what your favorite break of all time is. And can you grab this phone from me? And in 10 seconds, 8, 7, 6, what we're gonna do is one of the greatest hip-hop drummers of all time, with a gun to his head on a deserted island, is gonna tell you at least his top 3 favorite breaks of all time. If you don't say number, they don't have to be in order. They have to be breaks that like influence your drumming to some degree.
Yep.
In 3, 2, 1, go.
Funky Drummer, Clyde Stubblefield, James Brown. Here Comes the Beater Man. Ziggable.
Okay.
You know that record?
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense.
Because Ziggaboo's, you know what I'm saying? That's definitely a part of my DNA. Pause. Sure. Drumming.
Wow.
Okay, we got one more.
Oh shoot. Dang. The Impeach the President drums. Yeah.
And rest in peace to, I think the lead singer of you know, Impeach the President. What's the group's name? I'm having a brain fart. Just recently passed away. Impeach the President was done by, oh man, there's someone watching that's Googling and just shaking their head like, I can't believe you guys are having a brain fart on that. Either way. Well, so what happens when
bugging, but yeah, I like that break because you can play that on anything and people they connect to that break. You know
what is it about? Okay, let's talk about that. Let's get into this for one quick second, because everyone says their thing, but we want to hear what a drummer. Why is that drum? Why is that beat dope? Explain technically about the kick, the snare, the highs. What is it about? Why is that?
It's a lot of space. It's just a lot of space in between, and you can, in between the space, you can fill it up. The dance, lyrics, you know what I'm saying? Funky Drummer is a little complex. There's a lot going on.
Yes.
And if you're not a drummer, I mean, obviously people know it because it's been sampled, but it's not dance friendly.
Right.
But Impeach the President, it's just,
I see what you're saying.
Out the gate. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man.
You can play that on anything. Even if you're playing a rock song, you can play that beat, and somebody in the audience, like, it's a.
Well, listen to how many beats were made off of it. Those drums sound good on everything, obviously. Well, since we're going there, we might as well go here.
I gotta finish the other question, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, which one was the other? Oh, we're starting your professional career. Okay, let's go back to that. So you got the drum machine.
Got a drum machine, yep.
You're just like trying to emulate the breaks, and now how does the music come about?
Okay, so yeah, just listening to Tribe Called Quest. Man, De La Soul, RZA, Wu-Tang Clan, like hearing kung fu samples, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, man, I want to do this. So I had a friend that had a Casio keyboard that had 4 sample buttons.
Uh-oh.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, combined 12 seconds of sampling, maybe 3 seconds on each button.
He gave me that, and I was like, yo, you mean to tell me I press this button and whatever I do, the machine is going to do? Because I didn't know how people were sampling, but that was like my introduction. So I would make beat tapes. I would have my drum machine do just the drum, like program the pads on the drums, and then I would have this Casio and program, you know, with the cassette, find. And I didn't know what I was doing when I was sampling. Like I just had jazz projects on cassette or whatever, and I would just like sample anything. But on the Casio keyboard, you can detune. Like each keyboard, when you press one key, it would detune.
Oh,
so I was just making
you can put it across the keys. I see what you're saying.
And I was just making beats like that. But I had it to a cassette player, and I had to start everything at the same time.
So your drum machine's going.
Yep.
I just love breaking this down for people who may not have had that Gemini horrible sampler, okay? So the drum machine's going. You're having to manually trigger your samples.
Yes.
And then there's a cassette tape, and it's all running in. And and half the time you messed up and you had to start over again. Okay, and then what happened?
You know what's crazy?
So
because we didn't have a floppy disk, it wasn't no floppy with the Casio. At the end of every what I would record as a cassette tape, to remember where I got the sample from, I would just hit the keyboard with the sample at the regular speed, so I can remember where I got that from. It was no floppy.
I mean, there's a certain part of us that's like kind of happy computers exist now. Right? It was quite challenging, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I remember I had the Gemini one that had like 3 sample buttons. So you'd have to put the record on so fast, right? So that you can catch it and then slow it way down. So how do you go from, these are bedroom beats. How do you go from bedroom beats to professional, working with all the biggest names in the industry? Like, how does that happen?
Okay, so let me speak the story. So doing the beat tapes, and then I learned how to make the pause cassette tapes, because at the time I became a born again Christian. So it's like no secular music. But I was like, man, I like hip hop. Like I don't want to stop listening to hip hop. So what I would do, I would find the segments on the songs where just an instrumental, and I would just make pause tapes. I would keep splicing just the instrumental part of the song, and just keep dubbing back and forth to make an instrumental, just so I can continue listening to hip hop without the lyrics. Because the lyrics, it was nervous. There was a lot of profanity. They was talking about.
Right.
But I just gravitated towards the producers.
You were the only one who did that. I wish I could say that was a common. No, that's amazing. You made your own pause instrumentals.
Yeah, so basically I had an older mentor. I've always had older mentors in my life. He had a studio. I'm like, what is a studio?
Right.
He's like breaking it down. I was like, yeah, we got a place where we actually have equipment. So he took me into the studio, and then they showed me the real Akai S900 sample with Cakewalk.
Ooh, Cakewalk. I don't have any fond memories of Cakewalk or Digital Performer or any of the early.
Yo.
Yeah.
So they had the S900 rack mount. You had to have everything MIDI together.
Oh, yeah.
So you had to have a keyboard MIDI to the S900 going into the computer as a sequencer.
Yeah.
With the floppy disk.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was not fun. But you persevered. But you did
persevered. But you know what I liked about that? The S900, you can actually mix on it. But I would just mix in 5s, level 1 through 10.
Yeah.
It taught me how to mix early. So
barely mixing.
But I'm just saying
That's more like level.
Yeah, exactly. Level. So I learned how to level.
Right.
But it was cool. Like you had 1 through 10, and I always reference from another producer's album music. Like, okay, he got his drums up loud or snare, so I would like be like, those were my references. Like listening to finished products. You know what I'm saying?
So did you end up making like actual beats in that
Yes.
studio?
I have a whole box full of floppy disks.
And what happened with them? Did you sell them? Like, where are they now? How can we get a hold of them?
I still got a box of cassettes from that era in the 90s in Nashville. I still got my cassettes.
That nobody has heard?
I digitized some of them. I made beat tapes to put them on my Bandcamp page. There's a beat series called Loopers. If you go to my Bandcamp, Daru Jones Bandcamp. So I have a Loopers 1 through 5, chapters 1 through 5. So the first Loopers were reincarnations of
this early stuff.
And then fast forward, I remember Roland came out with this V8 888 multi-track, like it was an all-in-one. Like you can record vocals. It was a mixing board. You can record vocals. And,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Everybody was using it. It used to be at the churches.
The Moto, yeah.
I had that, and then I had the 303 Boss.
Oh man,
sample.
You were fancy. This is this is early '90s.
Well, beginning of the millennium, but the S900 stuff was in the '90s, mid '90s. So I was emulating Premiere and everybody that.
See, there's always somebody that helped. Like if that studio person hadn't been in your life, you know, to open your brain to all those possibilities.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So
I actually got a beat tape. Not to cut you off. I actually got a beat tape dedicated to those cassettes. It's Daru Mono Beats 97 to 99. It's on my Bandcamp page.
Oh, so we can find this stuff.
Yes. And you would not believe it. It sounds just like D&D recorded Premiere and Pete like.
Wow.
Like I figured the formula out early, and I know. Even though those are my heroes, I can never do what they've done. But like, I just got to.
That's your influence.
Those are my influences, so I can never say it. But yeah, it's definitely that vibe.
You have no idea. I
wish you could play it.
I know we could play it right now. That'd be amazing.
It's on. Like if somebody can pull it up, I don't know if we can do this on the live, but yeah, it's definitely the spirit of '90s, and it sounds just like, you know what I'm saying, the D&D stuff.
And these are recreations, or these are the actual beats?
The actual beats from the floppy disk.
Oh man.
On the cassette, all my cassettes got years on them. Still the 90s.
Okay, see that's really valuable. I think we're gonna have to unearth that.
At some point, I want somebody to do, you know, like a little documentary. Don't have to look at it like a mini doc, but I still got a box. It's probably like over 100 cassettes. Cause you know how this when you start producing at that age, that's all you do. You school and beats. I went to school, got my little Debbie cake snacks.
Right.
Then I was making beats with rice and drums.
So who was the first person to ever rap on your beats?
Oh shoot. That's a good question. Unprofessional?
Yeah, just like literally the first human being.
Okay. So this is a rapper named B Smooth. And B Smooth, he's in the West Coast now. He's doing his thing. And he's actually a second cousin. He was one of the first, and he taught me how to freestyle. But basically, I was just biting off of the lyrics of people that I knew, and then I would try to add my own. I was a huge Gangsta fan. Like Guru, I can recite every rhyme.
Yeah.
I was a guru. I just liked his tone.
Yeah.
And just it was Guru was dope.
And Premier's beats.
Premier's beats dope too.
Didn't hurt either. Okay.
So I can
he
rap
rapped on them.
gurus.
Did you ever record any of his raps?
No, I didn't, unfortunately.
Okay, so what's the first time you ever got paid for making?
That's a good question.
Not gospel or church music, but secular music.
So I remember in the early 2000s or mid 2000s when MySpace around, MySpace was a thing. It was dope because you were able to connect with people outside of your city, and I just and then you could put a music player on your page.
Oh yeah.
Video player. So that was like my reel or my demo. So I had made a name for myself. I started networking with people from Europe, and I was able to put out some projects with a couple European labels. But I remember getting a job from DJ Junior from Philly and Little Dave. They have a radio station called Eavesdrop Radio, and I was known for doing like remixes. And at the time, this is when the neo soul era was popping, and the neo soul was kind of transitioning into like techno. That's when everybody started doing like that techno. But the neo soul vibe is pretty much hip hop grooves, beats with vocals.
Yeah.
So I started making beats like that for vocalists. That was my way to do hip hop, because I started, instead of producing rappers, I would produce singers. And my sister Rena was one of my singers. Her name was Tamarina. But yeah, so I was producing hip hop beats on the vocalists, and I started just doing a lot of remixes. I would remix acapellas, a lot of things that I liked or I found, and I got hired to do a remix for DJ Junior. There's an artist named Joy. I think he paid me like $300 to do that remix, and it came out on vinyl, so that was like a big deal.
Yeah, but that $300, you remember it to this day.
Yeah, I paid my New York rent.
You still got the vinyl?
Yeah, I said yeah.
See?
Yes. And it's crazy because I was doing my remixes, I was using the 303, and I remember when that a piece of gear got popular. I remember finding out that Dilla and Malley was using that 303, the Boss 303.
Yeah.
You know, with the 8 buttons.
Sure.
And, but yeah, I was doing everything on that with the rolling virtual track recorder, so I can put the level, get the vocals, and it had 8 tracks. 8 tracks.
Yeah, but now you're doing a professional remix. You're $300. You're completely rich now.
I started getting actually do a lot of work like remixes, and I started doing my own projects through Roots and Records. That's the name of my company, Roots and Records. And I had these projects called Daru Jones Soul. What's it called? Oh, Spirit and Soul Hop. So I did a volume 7 through 9 or 10, and basically I would feature artists from overseas, because MySpace, it was just, you was connecting. It was just so many people, it was just, if you was, whatever you was doing, you could connect with somebody that liked what you do. So I was able to do these promo for download only. I don't know if you remember that era. There was one period where everybody was releasing music for free. Send space, you send it, and it was a whole era, and I was a part of that era. Just using the internet as a vehicle to get my music heard, and I call my music soul hop. Soul music combined with hip hop, because the same aggression as hip hop, but soul with the vocals.
So at this point, you're starting to really create a sound.
Yes, sir.
Starting to create a name. You're starting to create a lane through the internet. At what point do you start seeking out, and what point do artists start seeking you out from, your name and your sound?
Well, from playing the drums, it's even drumming was that was my go-to, because thank God I've been able to work with some really cool artists, and I'm grateful. In the mid 2000s, I started becoming I was Slum Village drummer. So when Jay Dilla transitioned in 2006, later on that year, T3, the last original member, he wanted to turn a new chapter. Dilla's gone, and then they also got some opportunities to perform where they would need a live band. They got asked to play Essence Festival in 2007, and they needed a live band. And then we done a show in Canada. Like I was a drummer, and so that was one of the bigger upper echelon hip hop people that I when I started playing with Slum, that opened a lot of doors.
Yeah, but also you're having to pick up kind of reins from Jay Dilla, and what influence did his sound and his beats have on your work?
It's crazy by me being a fan, and it's bugged out being from Michigan. I was actually a Premier fan forever, and I didn't even know Dilla produced some of the records until later on. Like I knew that obviously the stakes was high, but I was a Primo head, and Pete Rock and the RZA head, because that's that just who I gravitated towards. And but yeah, I was a fan of Dilla's, you know, of the Slum Village, and I was just like, I wanted to get everything that he produced. You know, so this is my late past. I just got all the projects. I remember when the Stevie Spacek record. I don't know if you remember Stevie Spacek.
Yeah.
The Dollar, that was so killer because I was like, yo, I don't know if he was doing a lot of R&B besides the Janet, you know, song.
Yeah.
With Q-Tip. But yeah, that was huge. Like, Dilla got this, you know what I'm saying, this hip hop track with this R&B dude, and the joint was killing. The joint was dope.
So at that point, I mean, this is really, you know, if I'm a drummer and all of a sudden I'm playing for Slum Village, I'm like, oh man, I have arrived.
Yo, so the crazy thing is, Black Milk is another rapper from Detroit, Michigan. When we would perform, Black Milk would open up for the shows. And so Black was like, yo, he was so impressed with the band. The other two members, I got to shout them out because they here. Aaron Bernathy, he's here. He's from Cleveland, but he was a music director for Slum Village, and he's the one who recommended me for the band. And then the other musician, Malik Hunter, plays bass. They're part of Nat Turner. That's Black Milk's touring band. But anyway, to make a long story short, Black Milk was like, yo, I want to use Slum Village band. Black Milk actually took Slum Village band. Because we ended up, the work wasn't, you know, they weren't bringing us on the road, and Black, he started working. He had records that he came out. So I played on the Sound of the City tour. I don't know if not the Tronic. Tronic was the Tronic album?
Yeah.
So that's when I started working with Black. We did the Tronic tour. And this is when he had Hex Murder.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all know who Hex is, but Hex is a state from Detroit, you know what I'm saying? He's definitely, you know, but he was Black Milk's manager. And those were fun times. So I went from playing with Black Milk, touring, and we toured in Europe, like playing Splash Festival, all like Montreal Jazz Festival. And then I started working with Talib Kweli. I became Talib Kweli's musical director. I was in New York, and I remember Kweli had a band called Idol Worship. It was like a pop, hip hop band. I don't know what to call it, but it was him and the singer Reese. I don't know if you know who Reese is.
Yeah, sure.
Reese is from Philadelphia. So Reese was a singer, Kweli was a rapper, and Graf was another vocalist from Canada. They had a group called Idol Worship, and I became the musical director. It was handed down through a keyboardist named Ray Angry. Now Ray Angry plays keys in the Roots. He's their additional keyboard player. He did one show and he was out, and I ended up taking over the job, and I did such a good job with musical directing Idol Worship. Kweli brought me on as his musical MD. So I'm playing with Tyler Kweli as his music director and drummer, Black Milk's drummer, and then I joined Ski Beats and the Senseis. So Ski Beats is producer from Reasonable Doubt. Camp Low, he's a part of the whole Dane Lucchini, like he's a part of that whole, Rockefeller, legacy.
This is a wild ride. And if we keep going, we start running into names like Jack White.
Yes.
We run into Pete Rock. Who else do we run into?
Pharaoh Lunch.
Jesus.
Okay. I feel like I could talk to you all day long.
But I kind of want to get but go ahead.
Well, I'm going to ask the question that you probably get asked a lot. You probably hate to answer this question, but it has to be asked. Who are your favorite drummers?
Oh shoot. No.
Okay, because as a kid who's,
okay. So let's go from the gospel. So from gospel drummers is Dana Davis from Detroit, Michigan. Played with a group called the Winans.
Sure.
He was the Winans touring drummer. The original drummer, Bill Maxwell, is one of my favorite drummers. He played on the records. And what was crazy about that, Bill Maxwell was the producer of the Winans records. And I was like, yo, a drummer being a producer? That's unheard of. And then I would find out about Stuart Copeland from Police.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
a composer too. So a lot of my favorite drummers, they're composers, and that makes sense because I feel like when I became a producer, it took my drummer to another level because at the thought process, when you're making beats, you put things together, you just like putting a puzzle, like you try to make something for people, you know what I'm saying? And so like when I'm playing, it's 1,000 things you can do, but it's only certain things that's going to work and enhance the track. Phil Collins.
I was just gonna say. I was gonna say Phil Collins.
And the thing about his fills, and his name is Phil Collins. He got the ill fills, right? They're so simple, but they make the records.
Right.
And even if you're not a drummer, you can play his fills.
Right.
It's universal. So Phil Collins, definitely Amir Questlove is one of my favorite drummers. We're talking about gospel drummers. So Dana Davis, Michael Williams, another gospel drummer. He played with a group called Commission with Fred Hammond. I don't know if you guys are. Yeah. Yeah, Michael Williams. Yes, so in Michigan, those people who I would go see when they would have these things called midnight musicals, which is like a concert, but they in churches midnight musical. So it would end at midnight. So you can go to church on Sunday. So it's like Saturday was the midnight music. You know what I'm saying? So it started like 10 o'clock and it was done. You know what I'm saying?
Oh wow!
So it was like our club for the church.
The cranking club, the cranking church club.
But you know, it was crazy too. Like, it was dope because you had all the choirs coming in and all the drummers coming in with their gear and they would just switch. One of the things they tell you as a drummer, you want to bring your snare drum, your bass pedal, because those are the most important things that you. Yep. Snare drum is to think, you know, your main sound. So you bring the pedal and then, so it's midnight music, everybody swapping the stick bag. So everybody swapping, you know, snares, but yeah. So those two drummers. Fast forward when I got exposed to jazz, my favorite drummers are Vinny Colaiuta.
Wow. Yeah.
Vinny played with Frank Zappa.
Okay.
Sting. Sure. And he toured with Herbie Hancock. Like his list. Jeff Beck and some everybody. And what I like about Vinny, he had a style, but he was a John Benny drummer. And he had you know when you heard Vinny on the record because he just so aggressive. But there's Steve Gadd.
Yeah.
Whoa. One of my favorite drummers because he was John Benny and he didn't overplay. Yeah. He made all the records feel good and he's one of my biggest influences.
That's a theme for you, isn't it? Not overplaying. Because I've listened to like at least 100 of your breaks, maybe more, just in research. And I gotta tell you, I don't know how that's happened. I gotta tell you, what's so beautiful to me about your breaks is how heavy and funky they are, and yet how much space there is. Where does that come from?
I'm going to credit everybody that came before me. My style is definitely a collage of everybody that I, was inspired off of. I think what I brought to the table was my gospel background.
Yeah.
That's you know what I'm saying? That's my role.
But you also choose interesting kicks and snares and percussion sounds. Can you tell us a little bit? Because, we could ask questions all day.
I'm a student.
Where do you get these sounds? Like, do you ever just, walk down the street and hear a piece of trash and go, hey, that was amazing?
Well, the drum community is so different nowadays. I'm glad that the things have grown. When you go into the trade shows, they make so many things for drums now. Like, when back in the days, you would need to have a percussionist to get a tambourine sound but now they make things where you can place on a snare and you have a tambourine right on your snare.
Right.
So nowadays the drummers are becoming the percussionists. Yeah. So that's me. I'm not just a drummer. I'm also playing percussions because I have a cowbell, I have a block, I may have some congos, I may have some tambourines. So now I'm a two-man.
Again, technology.
But yeah, as far as the sound, going back to the drum machine and the MPC or whatever people are using, trying to find ways to recreate that sound on the drums. And all the people that's what they're doing on MPC, they're taking the breaks from like a funky drummer and they're chopping each individual sample. They're taking the kick by itself, the snare by itself, and then they're making their own patterns. So that's So just.
So it sounds like you take that into account when you're drumming.
And even when I'm drumming like I'm mixing myself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like I always say, like I don't really like playing with headphones on because it depends. Because I know nowadays at the church they got the big plexiglass. But for me, I like to play to the room. You know what I'm saying? Because when you play to the room, it kind of, you know.
Right.
Yes.
It's like you don't need to be, you know, the
you
room.
become a part of the reverberance.
Yeah.
Right, rather than doing what you're doing regardless of the reverberance. Right.
And if you got headphones on, you're just going to play loud.
Right.
The entire time because you're just thinking, you know, you want to be heard.
Right.
But I say the people that can play with dynamics, those are the ones that get a little bit more work because it's like having a conversation. You get loud, or you get soft, you get loud. Same thing when you're playing drums. You're like if you're having a conversation with the other members.
I have to ask this question because there's a guy here in DC whose name is Tree Gotti, and he's a producer. The only reason I bring this up is because he got his name because one day he was drumming for a go-go band and his drumstick broke, and he had to break off a piece of the tree and finish the entire set with a tree branch. That's actually a true story.
Yeah.
Do you have any crazy stories? And please tell us what your craziest drum story is.
Yo, it's not really crazy, but first of all, I want to give a shout out to DC, the go-go community.
Oh yeah.
Big up to DC, because isn't that birth here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Much love, you know what I'm saying? I'm a huge fan. And that's not only just the patterns, just the tone, the sounds. Like it sounds like almost like timbales, like a percussive.
It
The
is.
snare drums were almost like the Clyde Stubblefield. Like it just it mixed a lot of different worlds.
It is timbales. I mean, congas and timbales are a big part of go-go music and percussion. But
that's a part of my sound. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a crazy story. Back in church, like again, we have service every night but Saturdays. They have a part of the service where they have worship music. I don't know if you guys are familiar with worship music, but that's when people are praising, you know, trying to get out of themselves to get let the Spirit come in. The church that I grew up in, the worship music would go for like more than 20 minutes, sometimes an hour. People trying to catch the Spirit. So you playing this constant, back in the days, you're playing this constant like house music, like house music, but it's the same vibe, but it's this repetitious groove. So you know, like when you listen to house music, it almost puts you in a trance because it's just this loop playing over and over, and you just. I know people, they do whatever they do, you know, when you listen to that music. I don't do any of all those things, but there's no judgments. But you know, it's just this trance. You hear that, and that's another thing about like when you hear James Brown talk about the one in Bootsy Collins. That when that loop comes back around to the one, it just hits a certain way. So it's you know what I'm saying? And that's the same thing with the worship music. So it's like it makes you want to dance. So it's worship dancing, right? Playing worship music for 20, 30 minutes, you're gonna break sticks. And you're not playing, because you're playing at a high dB. You're playing it at the loudest dB because it's all like house music. Yeah. And so you will break sticks, right? And sticks, you know, were kind of expensive. So when the sticks would break, and there's other drummers in there, you know, they may not have extra sticks, we would go use clothes hangers, the old school joints. So we would go take the cotton. Remember the old school clothes hangers with
the metal ones?
The metal ones with the
with the foam.
With the foam.
Yeah, with the foam.
With the foam. So we would take the what do they call those? The tube joints?
Oh, the roll.
The roll joints
of cardboard. You're talking. You're really. Oh my God, you're really going back. I bet these people don't even realize. So old hangers, but the sort of fancy. They were sort of fancy. Had a really hard piece of cardboard on them, but the only way to get that cardboard off without damaging it would be to completely untwist. This is what you're telling me you would do?
Yo, we had to do that.
Damn.
Because they didn't want to stop the worship music and the drummer's the heartbeat.
Yeah.
So, who's got in the cloakroom, they call it the cloakroom.
Sure.
So they would go take, people be,
Wow.
go taking them hangers off and taking the roll off, and that was a drumstick.
Damn.
And those wouldn't last that long.
Gotcha. Right. It's like a roll of toilet
And
paper.
then we would use the hangers. So we would, because the hangers were wide.
Right.
We would like,
You'd have to bend them.
bend them, make it look like
so
shit.
it doesn't.
The funny thing with the hangers would pluck the drum head, so that the drums would break. Metal hangers going to a drum head.
Hope your church had a good budget for these praise. Like, listen, Pastor, I can't afford to do these 20-minute praise sessions.
It's so many bootleg cheat codes in old school church. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, well, listen, we've been joined by so many amazing people. Thank you guys. Do you guys have any questions? Because, Daru it really kind of brought this amazing book with us today, okay? So when we're all done talking, you're absolutely welcome to purchase the book and get it signed. Hiab, if you want to grab some permanent markers for signing. Do you guys have any questions?
I do.
Yeah.
So how did you first start using the setup that you have for your drums right now? Like, it's so unique. I've never seen anything like it. How did you how did you get it to a place where you are comfortably playing with like your style?
The question was, how did he create his kit the way it is now?
That's a good question. So,
And why?
And why?
That's a very good question. It's a very good question. So basically, in the hip hop community, it's all about being authentic. And by me being a part of that community, that's a part of my, my journey. Being a hip hop drummer for over a decade. And one of the things growing up, it was all about like having your own identity and not biting. That's the term. I say if you biting, you copy that. And that was like a no-no. Like if I walked in the room and you had on the same thing I had on, we just want to have words. Because nobody wants to look like, they don't want you to look like them, or they don't want you to sound like them.
Right.
So when I became the hip hop drummer, the only drummer, well, he's not the only drummer, but one of the main drummers at the time was Questlove from The Roots.
Right.
And I'm a big fan. I remember finding out, like, I was like, man, there's a band playing drum machine beats live. So I was blown away when I first discovered The Roots. And I remember finally not only listening to the music, but seeing them perform. I was like, yo, this dude only got a snare drum and a floor tom and a kick drum. I was like, where's the rest of his drums?
How is this possible?
because I'm playing jazz, we all had the basic 5-piece. Snare drum, racks, 2 racks, and a floor tom.
Right.
The drums were bigger.
Right.
And then rock and roll, they had like 2 or 3 kick drums.
Right.
So I was used to seeing the big kids. I'm like, yo, this cat is only got 1 drum. You know what I'm saying?
How is he doing?
And he was killing it.
Yeah.
So I remember when I became the hip hop drummers, there were others, but as far as like upper echelon.
Right.
He was the first drummer that I saw playing hip hop. I was like, man, now I'm playing in these hip hop groups. I don't need all those drums because I'm just replaying loops. Like trying to emulate what I heard from the hip hop producers. They were sampling Funky Drummer, and they were, it was it didn't have a lot of fills. So I was like, I'm going to downsize my kit to just a snare drum and floor tom like Questlove. And I was like, man, I knew one day I was going to be Quest. But I was like, I don't want to be in the same room and he'd be like, man, why this cat biting off my drum? Copy, you know what I'm saying? So I always had the mindset. I was like, okay, I started off similar kit like Quest, and I was like, well, what can I do so my kit just don't look like it is? I'll play the traditional grip. I'm going to show you guys that.
Walk them through it.
What's that?
Walk them through it.
Oh, thank you guys for coming by too. I really appreciate it. I know this is like a holiday weekend. So there's 2 grips. There's the match grip. Obviously because match the same on both sides. Then there's the traditional grip. This is the jazzy grip. You know what I'm saying? So I saw the traditional grip when I was introduced to the Buddy Rich Memorial Series. Buddy Rich is a famous old school drummer, and he had these concert series that would feature Vinny and all the people, Dave Wacko, and that's how I found out about those drummers. But I was like, okay, I remember seeing Steve Gadd and Vinny, no, definitely Steve Gadd, they would, and like Philly Joe Jones, Louis Belcher, they would took the snare drum, the master grip. So it was like how it's like this, they would took the drum sideways, and it goes back to the old school, like playing just a snare drum, like in marching band. The snare was like hanging around your neck, and it was going down, so that
it made more sense.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, I never saw nobody do that. So let me took the snare. So I started with the snare drum. Then I was like, man, what would happen if I do the floor time? So it was really awful looks. I just didn't want my kid to look like Questlove kid. I don't want us to be in the same room and you feel some kind of way.
Wow.
So it was just to have an identity. And then I went from sitting low because at that time the drummers that I looked up to, like Vinny, Terry Bozzio, they all sat really low and their drums covered them. You couldn't even see the drums because they were covered by cymbals and drums.
Yeah.
Terry, you know Terry Bozzio?
Yes.
Man, probably got one of the biggest drum kits.
Yeah. You can't even see him behind the kid.
I met Terry Bozzio and I actually played this kid pause, and when I went to the BW factory in LA. But he told me it takes 4 hours to set up his drum kit.
Yeah.
4 hours. His drum kit. But yeah, so go back. Snare drum. Okay. Oh, floor time, cool. And so I was like, all right. Well, now I'm gonna sit high, so everything is low, and then I like to dominate the drums, like come down. So I sit really high, then I had the cymbals. It looks like furniture. I wanted everything to look neat. My dad was a neat freak. He was one of the cleanest dressed men that I knew, but he had the glow of the black Cadillac. He was all about swag, so I wanted my drums to look like a car.
Okay.
Like a low-rider car, you know what I'm saying? So basically it was for looks, and then I had to figure out how to play it. I had to change my vocabulary because I was used to having my two rack tones. I had to figure out how can I get all these sounds out of minimal drums. So to answer right now,
You're acting like this is normal. I built my drum kit to look like a car, and then I figured out how to play it. Like, I'm not a drummer, but that doesn't even sound like a normal sentence. Is that a normal sentence?
How long did that take to actually play in that position, get used to?
well, the snare drum wasn't that hard because I played traditional grip, so it was easy to do ghost notes. And because I sat really high, it made sense. But when you look at the kit, just without somebody sitting behind it, it looks crazy.
It looks yeah.
But when you see me sitting behind it and you see it makes sense because it's lower.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But anyway, just like when you learn how to ride a bicycle, you got the training wheels. You know what I'm saying? And then eventually you learn how to ride. So I had to start all over, literally. Learn, like when you get your driver's license, you don't even learn how to drive until you get your license. Because you get the experience, right? So basically I just was trying to figure out how can I get a lot of sounds out of limited drums. And then when the way my drums are now, I had to be intentional because they're not easy to get to. Like my rack tom is to the left of me and it's tilted. So basically now I'm going to put the producer's mode. When I hit that tom, it's got to be a Phil Collins feel. It's got to make sense because if I fumble, it's going to look bad. And now we got it on tape. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's filming. You know what I'm saying?
Like, this was a great idea until now.
And then some people, they be like, yo. I remember when Gospel Chops came out. I'm not sure you guys familiar with the Gospel Chops era. Gospel Chops era, basically, okay, so I spoke about when I started playing in church, gospel was different. It was more bare bones, playing house, simple. But then it graduated to Gospel Chops, which was like fusion gospel. Talking like Dennis Chambers playing gospel. Anybody know who Dennis Chambers is?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So can you imagine Dennis Chambers playing all those fields in the gospel singing? It's a lot of more notes. So that became a thing in gospel. So now all the drummers are playing all these amazing.
Right.
It may not fit, but they're gonna make it work.
But it's there.
And it's no dish, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's levels to this. It's levels to this,
Well, so long story short, we're answering this young man's question.
This one looks off looks.
It's 100% looks. That is the wildest thing. I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna think about that all weekend long.
But it also forced me to be creative too. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like by me being a genre, that's why I wanted to be a genre-bending drummer. I knew early, even playing gospel, and it was a normal to listen to other genres, I feel like my gifts are going to be bigger than the church, and it's no diss. I still keep my gospel roots, and I take it everywhere I go. I want to continue to be a vessel on stage and off stage, and show God's love.
A vessel on stage and off stage. It's a beautiful statement.
So this is not about me at the end of the day. This is, I'm using my gifts to show God's love. So I was saying this for a reason with the drum kits. Where was I going with this?
You wanted to be different than Coach
so the genre bending aspect of being intentional with when I do the fills. You know what I'm saying? Like it's got to count.
You've like forced yourself physically to like only use them when.
This is what I was. This is what I was. So I was basically saying, I grew up at a time where there was no YouTube. YouTube's a cheat code. So back in the days, you had to transcribe everything. Or you had to just listen and figure out what they were doing. And that's really helped me creatively because I had to force. I remember getting records. I was a fan of like Chick Corea and Herbie and all those guys who were putting out records, and they would use the same musicians on each of their projects. And then those musicians would come up with solo projects. You know, Wecco would do a project and they would use the same configuration. But then you didn't always know who was playing. You know, like it wasn't no visual. You just listened to the record and you had to figure out who was playing. And I remember having to realize, okay, Vinny tuned his drum a certain way. Vinny's touch. And so I train my ear to be like, I can walk in the room and hear a song and be like, that's Vinny. And not even look at the liner notes. So growing up at that time, being forced to figure it out, it helped me creatively. And getting into bands and throwing myself in a fire, going to these jam sessions, playing with people that I've never met, it forced me to be creative. So I took that concept. To be a musician is not easy. There's levels to this, you know what I'm saying? But even when you join a new band, like, there's personalities. If you don't get along with the dude, it's going to show in your playing.
Doesn't matter if you're the best musician in the world if you can't get along with people.
Exactly. So that vibe and energy, that's a real universal thing. And that goes outside of drumming. That's just everything.
Right.
That's everything.
No, that's really
acting,
true.
That's doing makeup, and that's everything. It's a vibe. And so all of those experiences and coming up, getting the best out of both worlds. So because now I have to learn how to play by ear, learning the hard way, and then now the easy way, the cheat code, the YouTube, where you can just, you know what I'm saying? Learn how to fix your car, learn how to fix the computer. You know what I'm saying? So now I can take both of those worlds and put them together. And now I'm using the internet as a vehicle to showcase. And basically what I did was I documented everything. I had a cassette player, I recorded my rehearsals, I recorded me practicing, and I just made notes of what sounded good.
Sounds to me like the 10,000 hour rule. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Malcolm Gladwell's, concept of becoming an expert requires 10,000 hours of practice, and if you want to get to Daru's level, maybe even 15,000.
Yo, it's crazy. Not to cut you off. This is a different day. You have people that can be successful. They can go viral. You know what I'm saying? I don't take back paying dues. Because regardless of whatever the thing is now, you still got to pay dues. It don't matter how good you can practice in your room and know all the chops, but you still got to pay dues still. You know what I'm saying?
It also sounds to me like you were forced to pay dues through the church and the band, with your family. You kind of had to get a leg up on a lot of people with that. You get a leg up right away.
Man, I remember when you had to go meet the guy to get to the next guy to get to, like if you want to get an endorsement, go to the trade shows. You have your press kit together, and you wait in line. Just like how they did the demos back in the days when you were trying to get a record deal.
You'd wait in line for an endorsement deal?
Because there's so many people trying to get on.
Right.
And they have to sign so many artists per year, and they sign a who's hot.
Who makes the best drums right now?
I'm biased, so I'm not to say DW. I don't lose.
I'm trying to figure like
BDP, DW drums.
Who makes the best cymbals?
Feisty. There's levels to this, though.
Who makes the best?
Yeah, I'm gonna say this. When I got exposed to the rock and roll drummers, when I would get the modern drummer magazines, that's what I saw. Terry Bozzio, all the rock guys, and Stuart Copeland. Feisty was like they were the poster child. So when I started playing rock and roll, and then I found out they had a lot of different families. And then when I found out Vinny was using Feisty, I was like, okay. And Vinny's my favorite drummer, so he's like, nah, chill. But I had certain parts of my career where I used other brands. I'm not gonna lie.
Questions? Anyone else have any questions?
I have a question.
Here's a word from our sponsors.
Right, exactly. Go for it.
Yeah. What is your favorite drum head?
I'm sorry?
What is your favorite drum head?
That's a good question. So the drum heads are what you put on the drums to hit on. Remo, ambassadors. Ambassadors.
Which one? Just regular?
Regulars, yeah.
Just regular?
Regulars.
Okay.
You use the coded ones?
Coded ones, yeah.
And we're going to close with this last question. If you had to give advice to a young person, let's say someone 11, 12 years old, you know, who's coming up, he's not a drummer, he plays piano, but he is a young person. What advice would you give to them coming into, let's say, specifically the hip-hop world these days?
Find what you like. And dig into that. Because you don't know what you're going to gravitate towards. It may be things out now that's popular, like trap, but that might not be your vibe. So be open-minded to see, check out, because now hip-hop, there's a lot of different genres in hip-hop.
Yeah.
Where it just used to be one, but now there's boom bap,
Right.
there's trap, there's the West Coast.
It's also
Midwest.
birthed other genres, because I believe like even he likes dubstep a lot,
Okay.
and I believe that dubstep is an offshoot of hip hop based on tempo and pattern. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
No, I think so.
I would say check them all out and see what gravitates towards you, and start from there, and then just be open-minded, which lacks nowadays. A lot of people are not open. I don't feel like they're not open-minded. Although I get a lot of love on my drum kit because it's not your most traditional, but if you go back into the 1900s, you'll find drummers set it up with angles. But nowadays, people, they get closed-minded. They don't even have to hear me play. They automatically criticize my drums without even seeing me play. And so while you have these social networks, they're like bullying me. They like, and they don't even know your history. They just talking about how crazy.
Because of the drums.
But back in the days, we were open-minded. Like, I remember hearing about like all different drummers that I never knew. Peter Erskine, and, Simon Phillips. Just a lot of people that were not gospel drummers, but they had a lot more drums. But I was open to checking it out. I was like, oh, let me try that. Let me set my drums up like that and see.
Right, Max Roach, Willie
Like,
Bobo.
yeah. So I would say it's good to be open-minded. If you normally just listen to one genre, try to listen to other genres and just
See what you can glean from each one.
Yeah, and my style is just a mix of all of those things. Just a little tidbit, and then the gospel roots, and then my own swag. I just put them all together. So I give honor and praise to those that came before me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep what they did alive.
Well, you're like a beautiful gumbo of everything that came before you.
Appreciate it.
Can we give a round of applause to Daru Jones? Thank you so much for being with us. You guys are all welcome to kind of come up, purchase a book, get it signed. I'll grab the book.
Yo, what up, man? Good to see you. Been a minute.